How you doing, everybody? It's Friday the 5th of March 2010. It's coming up to tea time. It's about 5:30 in the afternoon. I want to deal with something that's a bit complicated tonight, and it's to do with the concept of whistleblowing. And it's particularly complex in relation to Ireland because of our historical baggage. And we got our independence in 1922, and it was fraught with problems when we did get our independence, because we'd had an imperial power here for 400 years, and when they left us basically in total penury. I mean, there was literally not a cent here. In order to survive as a state, we had to go out and issue promissory notes all around the world, bonds, government bonds. Alright, so that's how our state initiated itself. And for the 400-year period that the imperial power Britain was here, one of the key sort of survivalist tactics from the ordinary peasantry was that you saw no evil, you heard no evil, and you spoke no evil, like the three monkeys. Because if you saw something going wrong and it related to one of the good and the mighty, you couldn't say anything, because if you did, you'd be sent off to Van Diemen's Land or whatever. And you can imagine, okay, or you could be hung or whatever, okay, or you could be set up like a patsy. And anyway, the implications were dire, to say the least, if you saw the wrong thing and you said the wrong thing as a result of seeing the wrong thing. Okay, so lots of people saw lots of things that were wrong, but didn't say anything about it. And that has carried over from 1922 until today, which is nearly, what is that, 90 years later. Okay, or almost 90 years later. And when I made the little projections for a better society at the end of last year, number one was the concept of a whistleblower's charter, and I believe that it's vital, and I think it should be introduced, except this government are totally and utterly opposed to it for obvious reasons. Because if you've got something to hide and you're a government riddled with cronyism, acute heroism and corruption, it's obviously not in your interest to have people going around and whistleblowing. Alright? And the unfortunate problem with the people who, because it's the state they're whistleblowing on, the problem is that they can't put their head above water, generally speaking, because the best case scenario is probably that they'd lose their job. The worst case scenario is they could be on some sort of a state charge and they get 5 or 10 years for it. Now, the reason it's so important is because about a month ago, it's considered to be the most liberal newspaper we have, the Irish Times, a whistleblower sent them information relating to the Moriarty Tribunal, and it's an ongoing tribunal relating to corruption, political corruption, and it centres around Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. Okay, these are the two major parties in the Irish state. So, to give you an idea, and what happened was, as a result of the Irish Times publishing this article, they published an article relating to this information that had been passed on to them. The state initiated a charge against the Irish Times, the newspaper, specifically its editor and the lady who the political correspondent who wrote the article. So these two people were up in court, and they went through the district court, the high court. Maybe they didn't go to the district court. Might have been. It certainly was at the high court anyway. And then it went to the Supreme Court. And on both occasions, it was found in favour of the Irish Times, because the information was deemed to be of such high importance and of such importance relating to the public interest that it was deemed that the editor and the person who had written the article had done the proper thing to bring it to public notice. But the caveat was that in the case at the Supreme Court, the good and the mighty who sat on that bench decided that the costs of the case, which were over €600,000, should be found against the Irish Times. In other words, the state's charges, the state's costs, and the Irish Times costs were put together and put against the Irish Times. So effectively it was a gagging order, or a fine. Effectively that's what it was. It was a massive fine. So what the state was saying is, we can't get you on this, we can't get you to stop you. You must remember who these Supreme Court justices are. They're all handpicked by the state. So that's what happened. So effectively it's an unofficial gagging order against the Irish Times. And from what I can see, the only way around it is to appeal it to Europe. And if I was the Irish Times, that's what I would be doing. I'd be going to Europe with that charge. But what's happened is, you must remember who the Irish Times are. They'd be, as I say, it's the leading liberal, considers itself to be the leading liberal paper in Ireland. And it's one of two daily newspapers that have the biggest circulation in Ireland. Then we have an evening newspaper called the Evening Herald, and it's in a similar situation at the moment, because what has happened is this man, I'm going to post him here, that man you can see there, it's Dermot AHERN, and he's our Justice Minister, and he's basically sent the guards in, the police in, to the Evening Herald, to its editor and to the staff who published an article. And this article again is a whistleblowing article, and it relates to the one of the junior ministers who was on the cabinet, not on the cabinet, but he was aligned to the cabinet, a member of the Green Party, a man called Sargent. And he was dismissed from his post. He lost his ministerial post a few days back. Anyway, that's not what's important. What's important is that all of a sudden the state, having effectively gagged the Irish Times, are now turning their attention to this newspaper, the Evening Herald. So here we have another independent media, and the reason for all this is that what I've done is I've put a link up, and you can have a read, and the link relates to the article from last night's Evening Herald, and it explains it all a lot better than I could, because it is quite complex. Okay, but if you want to read about it, have a read. It explains it, as I say, in great detail. The reason behind all this is very, very simple. What you have is, you have the likes of YouTube, you've got an alternative media growing up, and these people are terrified. These people are really, really terrified. For the first time in their lives, people are getting the courage to stand up and be counted and say to these people, we give you the authority, the sovereignty lies with us. People are recognising that the sovereignty lies with the people through our constitution. We loan them the sovereignty, and we expect them to look after our country in a proper manner for us, for our children and our grandchildren, and for future generations. And this crowd have been showing up for what they are: a crowd of gangsters, cheap couturism, cheap cronyism. That's the labels that they operate under. Alright, brown envelope brigade, that's what they really are. And just one tribunal after another into their affairs. It's just sickening. And people have had it up to here. And now we've had the NAMA thing launched on us, and the whole thing is just, it's a joke. And they are really frightened about the outcome of all this. They know the power of propaganda. They know the power of political propaganda and economic propaganda when it's mounted in an effective way against them. And they are really quaking in their boots. Now, this is their response. Effectively, they've gagged the Irish Times. The Irish Times, if it receives any more whistleblowing information, will not publish it. I can assure you, no editorial committee or no committee that runs the Irish Times will let that go ahead if they're going to be fined, effectively fined €600,000. And we now see a similar approach been made with this Evening Herald. This is the first stone getting thrown, and you'll find they'll be in court, and something similar is going to happen to them. So this is what it is. It's just effectively a gagging order issued by the state, using the courts as their instrument. That's effectively what it is. They may say different, but that's in reality It's that, and it's nothing less, and it augurs bad for the future. Talk more.